Welcome. This presentation provides an overview to the Nationally Developed Teacher Performance Assessment, or the TPA. The presentation has two parts. You'll need the following documents handy: a field test handbook for your content area, and templates for each TPA task in your content area. Templates are documents that student teachers will download right into and upload during the field test. The purpose of developing broad awareness about the TPA is threefold. First, it ensures a successful field test for Spring 12 student teachers. Second, awareness allows us to continue backwards design conversations. In each program, we are using the TPA to build greater coherence in what we ask our candidates to do and how we provide feedback prior to student teaching. Third, adopting the TPA gives us a chance to learn what our candidates' practice looks like as they finish our program. In other words, we want to see our candidates' actual teaching practice and how they think about it. Doing so helps us understand what we're doing well and to ask deeper questions about what needs more attention in our programs. This is a feedback loop we currently do not have in place to guide coherent, focused program renewal. By the end of this two-part presentation, you will understand the following about the TPA. First, you'll learn about the national context for CU Boulder's participation in TPAC. Second, you'll be able to put the TPA in context at CU. How does the TPA relate to our vision of the best should teach, to our commitment to improve how we prepare teachers to support culturally and linguistically diverse learners? Third, you'll learn about the lineage and design elements of the TPA. The second part of the overview guides you through items 4 to 6 on this slide and is a separate presentation. By the conclusion of this two-part presentation, you'll be ready to take the following action steps. First, you'll be able to participate in an informal scoring session using a benchmark TPA in your content area. One of the best ways to grasp this tool is to score a TPA, and we'll do some informal scoring in the coming months. Second, in this presentation, we won't go into sufficient depth about how the TPA frames academic language, but you'll be ready for more focused webinars about academic language available on the TPAC name. Third, if you're supervising student teachers this spring, you'll be better prepared to support them. And I note that for supervisors, more information is forthcoming, particularly around logistics of video recording, how to introduce the TPA to student teachers, how to sequence deadlines, and how to provide appropriate guidance and feedback. Fourth, if you teach in one of our programs, you will identify ways you might adapt current course assignments or your feedback to candidates so that student teachers next year are better prepared for the TPA. Fifth, at the program level, understanding the TPA will deepen program understandings and conversations about teaching practice. For example, thinking about the TPA as a capstone assessment in our programs may help programs finalize adoption of common lesson plan templates, or develop a progression of video-based assignments, or use TPA commentary prompts about academic language to set expectations and guide our candidates to support culturally and linguistically diverse learners. Finally, this overview to the TPA should generate new questions for follow-up presentations. Let's jump in and talk about why the TPA and why now. Teacher education institutions find ourselves sitting at the center, and some would say target, of a national conversation about teaching quality. And the icons on this slide flag a range of policy initiatives around raising and measuring student achievement, evaluating teacher effectiveness, improving preparation and induction, evaluating teacher preparation. Nationally, critics outside teacher education are developing policies and programs to prepare quality teachers. I note, for example, Senator Bennett's bill to create more non-university-based teacher preparation pathways, like the Relay Graduate School. But teacher educators are also actively engaged in efforts to transform how we prepare teachers. TPAC is one national endeavor, attempting to transform teacher preparation at scale, going beyond course level and even program level innovations in universities. In Colorado, as in the nation, our critics want to see evidence that university-based prepared teachers impact student learning and are ready for the realities of today's classrooms. Questions that we regularly ask ourselves: do our graduates leave both committed to our vision of the best should teach and, more importantly, able to live that vision? Do we prepare well-started novices? At CU, we want to be able to make a stronger case to ourselves, our partners, and our critics that CU Boulder graduates are well prepared. To that end, we are working hard to use shared assessments that make explicit what we value as effective, inspiring, and engaging teaching practice. So the TPA is supplanting CU's version of the teacher work sample, allowing us to improve on some of the known weaknesses of the teacher work sample. Namely, our version of the teacher work sample is idiosyncratic to CU. It does not have rubrics indicating performance levels, and we cannot ensure comparability of scores across supervisors, programs, and semesters. Plus, the teacher work sample is arguably only loosely coupled with course experiences prior to student teaching. I like to think of the TPA as a mini national board. By participating in the national consortium, we will end up with a tool that gives us valid, reliable scores that in turn allow us to make well-substantiated claims about what our candidates can do as they exit the program. Looking at our candidates' TPAs and TPA scores helps us understand both our graduates and our programs. TPA scores produce a profile of teaching practice that help novices identify relative strengths and weaknesses to guide improvement. The scores also provide a rich data source for studying program effectiveness, particularly areas of strength to build on and ways to help candidates leave even better prepared. Finally, as new evaluation systems roll out in response to educator effectiveness implementation, our candidates will be evaluated using multiple measures of their practice, some very much like the TPA. You've heard TPA and TPAC. What's the difference? TPAC refers to the consortium of organizations supporting the TPA, or the tool itself, so the C is for consortium. There are 4 organizations leading this consortium. AACTE is providing national leadership, coordinating a strategy for higher education institutions to claim the conversational floor in battles over effective teacher education. Stanford University is developing the content and structure of the TPA assessment and providing all the technical, intellectual support for the scoring process. And Stanford will remain the driver and owner of all substantive changes to the assessment tool. The Council of Chief State School Officers, who are, for example, commissioners, state school superintendents, is working to develop coherent policies so that the TPA is linked to how licenses are granted and how teachers earn professional licenses. Pearson, as an operational platform, will manage the scorer training, the uploading of assessments, so they are managing the scoring process. This map highlights states involved in TPAC. We are the only Colorado institution involved thus far. The red states on the map are accelerated. That is, in those states, policy is supporting a swift implementation across all teacher preparation institutions. Within TPAC, Stanford has taken the lead in developing the TPA tool, and you can see they've orchestrated a deliberate design process. CU has been involved throughout, culminating this spring in the field test across all subject areas and full implementation next fall. We do anticipate the tool will change modestly as a result of field test data, and that teacher educators will be involved annually in making updates to the TPA. Having just noted some policy practice reasons for participation in the national conversation around the TPA, let's turn to talk about the lineage, design principles, and elements of the assessment. The TPA architecture has its roots in the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards portfolio assessment, which in turn informed Connecticut's best assessment for teachers at the end of the induction phase, as well as the performance assessment for California teachers, or PACT. The PACT, which is now one of 2 options for licensure assessment in California, is the direct prototype for the TPA. So when I call the TPA a mini national board, I reflect the lineage of this assessment and highlight its commitment to a rigorous threshold into teaching. The TPA has been designed to be an educative tool for candidates. The designers wanted to construct an assessment that produced data about a teacher candidate's performance and at the same time offered candidates a deep learning experience that might guide their future practice. Among the design principles, I highlight the analytic feature of the rubrics, because that is a crucial feature of this assessment that helps candidates learn in and from doing the TPA. The rubrics place candidates on a continuum of performance, allowing them to locate where they are and what they might need to do to improve their practice. Before turning to the elements of the TPA, it's worth noting that the TPA has always been conceived of as a capstone assessment in a system of aligned, integrated multiple measures. For example, as important as the TPA are embedded signature assessments, which are well-developed course assessments that help candidates build essential knowledge and practice. I list a few different course-level signature assessments at CU that have been developed over time, collaboratively, and that are typically implemented each time the course is taught, regardless of the instructor. We may find we make modest revisions to our signature assessments to enhance alignment between them and the TPA tasks. Also envisioned in a multiple measure assessment system are systematic observations and ongoing supervisory evaluation and feedback. To improve these aspects of our teacher education assessment system at CU, we've also been introducing and piloting this year, in small-scale ways, the Quality Urban Classroom or QUC observation tool and a newly developed professionalism rubric. The TPA as a capstone is conceived of as an opportunity for candidates to integrate and consolidate what they've learned about planning, assessment, and reflection. I turn now to introduce the elements of the TPA, and I want to do so showing you 3 different ways to envision the big picture of the TPA. Imagine flying over it at 10,000 feet, and we'll take sort of 3 different looks. First is to think of the TPA as a list of elements, and I'll start with the learning segment. The TPA is a focused look at 3 to 5 hours of connected instruction, which is likely to be part of a larger unit of instruction. There are 4 tasks comprising the TPA, and within each task, candidates provide evidence of teaching practice. And note this evidence comprises both artifacts of teaching practice, think lesson plans, video clips, student work, along with reflective commentary that has been guided by very specific prompts. As we work through the tasks of the TPA, you'll also examine the 12 rubrics used to assess evidence of teaching practice that's presented in the TPA. A second way to see the TPA at the 10,000-foot level is this visual schema. It highlights the major dimensions of teaching assessed as candidates complete the 4 tasks and the specific evidence provided. The schema shows different artifacts associated with each of the tasks. So, for example, within the planning task, the artifacts are context for learning information, lesson plans, instructional materials, and assessment tools. It also shows that there are written commentaries that go with each of the tasks. The dark green bar on the bottom highlights the fact that the analysis of teaching commentary draws upon the interactions among planning, instruction, and assessment, and that evidence for academic language comes from the planning tasks and either the instruction or assessment task. Here's a third way to envision the TPA at the 10,000-foot level. This visual highlights the thinking involved in writing commentaries. So there are basically 3 thinking moves that teachers engage in as they work through the TPA. They describe, explain, and analyze and reflect. Or put another way, they ask and respond to 3 questions: what, so what, and now what. And on this slide, I've highlighted a few examples within the TPA of each of these moves across the different tasks. This concludes the first part of the TPA overview presentation. So taking stock, in this first part, you've developed an understanding of the national and CU context for implementing the TPA, as well as gaining a big picture view of the lineage, design principles, and elements of the TPA. The second part of the overview presentation offers a guided walk through the organization of the TPA handbook and templates, the structure of the rubric, followed by a focused look at each TPA task, and then the academic language rubrics.